Good morning, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here this morning. And thanks, of course, to Harvard for inviting us all here. Definitely an honor, and we're happy to be here today. I know I speak for all of us here when I say that. As Charanya was saying, we have people from all over, and I'm just going to, our detailed bios are all there, of course. But just to sort of give you a lay of the land in terms of why the people who are here truly represent marketing as we know it in India today. I'm going to start off with Rajat Mehta. He is the president and the country head of Yes Bank. He has two titles because one isn't cool enough. And that's banking. He truly understands the broader spectrum of brands, sponsorships. He also knows stuff about IPL if you want to know it. All of it, the broader portfolio of what it means to be in banking. He's a master of it all, and because that doesn't keep him busy enough, he's also an avid sportsman and traveler. While most of the people are talking about the EMIs that they need to pay before a certain age, his goal has been to be in all of the 7 continents before a certain age. So that's Rajat Mehta for you. We also have Babita, who's from advertising. Again, what's marketing without advertising? So she's here to represent that spectrum, a really enviable list of brands. She's been exposed to all of them. And she also does the lecture circuit and teaches in a lot of the reputed institutes. That's Babita for us. Then we have Satyaki Ghosh, who is the director of consumer products of L'Oreal. He represents the CPG world, because obviously that's going to be critical. And he knows all there is to do. He also understands retail, and he can tell you things about random places like Bitia and Babua and things like that. And he'll sort of like, you don't know that these places exist. If you're wondering, those are real places that exist in Bihar. And finally, we have Jesse to truly represent the entrepreneur's world, which is a big part of India today, and you've been hearing about it in the last 48 hours. And she's the CEO of Paul Reiter Strategic Advisory. But before that, she has been the CMO of Wipro. She also has been part of the Infosys world. These, again, are like truly Indian brands, and she understands that part of the world. So that's our panel for you. They may not be Bollywood celebrities, but they are rock stars. And so we're very, very happy to have them here today. And before we start off, also, I do want to give you some context of the theme that we had today and what that is about. So India in transition is the broader theme which you would have read about. If you do Google that, you'll find that history has this perspective of India in transition. Economics has a perspective on it. Everybody has a perspective on India in transition because it is such a dynamic nation. So it's sort of more a cliche that everyone likes to talk about because it's a given. India is always in transition. So in fact, M.N. Roy wrote a book about India in transition in 1922. That's 25 years before India even existed. So we started trying to dig a little deeper into what does it really mean. I'm assuming you have been through the sessions yesterday. And a lot of them were, in fact, JP started off at one point saying, the thing about India is you can say this, you can say that, they'll both be true and both untrue. And you've probably heard this a lot, like, how do you make sense of this? So that we thought was like a far more challenging and interesting thing to do because marketers typically don't have that luxury of saying it's this and it's that. It can be both, and you can't really be cryptic about it, you can't be esoteric about it. They really have to pick a horse, saddle it, and ride it. So we thought we'll try and answer those kinds of questions and try and make sense of that. So that's what we'll be doing, because we can't really embrace all the delicious confusion that we've heard the others doing. The other theme that came up yesterday was sort of when you talk about healthcare or education, LGBT rights, with all of these, there was always there's some good, but that's sort of like that we should be doing so much more. Marketing, I think, is one of those few industries where it truly is optimistic when you're talking about India. There's the sense of there's a lot of good, maybe because the government doesn't touch it as much. But at the end of the day, it's like there is a lot of optimism that always tends to be there. So I think it's like in a sea of, oh, we should be doing so much more, it's sort of an island of stuff that really gets done. So that being the case, we're going to just launch right in. One of the, if you'd read the starting point, the setup to the panel, we talked about one of the things that comes up often and has been for a couple of years is the notion of India being part of the BRICS and what it means. So when it first came up, it was like this cool acronym, and it's been used since. But there are a lot of negative markers if you look at it outside. So the macroeconomic indicators are not great. The GDP, there's a lot of question on are things really good? Not to get all economicsy, but the thing is that there is question of will India hold up to that promise? And on the other end, Martin Sorrell recently said at the E4M conclave that India is the only brick in the wall because all the rest have faltered in some way or the other. So I'd toss it to you, Rajat, in terms of what's your take on how we make sense of this?
Thank you, Nima, and hi everyone. Great to be here. So I think the one thing that sort of binds all of us in this panel is the optimism for India, and I would hope that a lot of people in the room share that. But again, without getting too much into economics, I want to just quickly talk about other BRIC nations and how India stacks up, right? So if you look at Brazil, it's the economy is going to shrink by 4%, and it's the first recession in decades, probably in a century. Russia is reeling from the oil meltdown and Western sanctions. China, the economy, and we all know, is under some stress, and the world's feeling the heat. In a sense, the economy is recalibrating from an export economy to a domestic consumption economy, and it's likely to take some time. South Africa, the S in the BRICS is relatively very small and has taken a big hit because of commodities. So really, it's India that globally and global commentators feel has the big potential, right? I mean, at a macro level, it's really the shining star. And while I don't think any of that optimism is ill-founded, clearly we have some challenges, but I think the mid to long-term perspectives are fantastic. And my take on that is purely because of the numbers and demographics. So if you take, and in my view, the next, say, couple of years are going to be very, very big because of just the numbers on technology, connectivity, and how, millions of Indians are now getting connected to consumer products. So picture this, we have 1 billion mobile phone connections. Only 300 million of these are on smartphones. So 700 million Indians have mobile phone connections, but are on feature phones, the old generation phones. 240 million of these connections are on data. So, a big 75% odd people are still not on data. They're still only on voice. And obviously that means that 60 million people have smartphones, but they don't have data. But that's India. And this number of 240 million was only about 100 million 2 years back. So, there is a compounded growth rate of about 70% on data year on year. So, exponentially, the growth on data and connectivity is just astounding.
He's in banking, so we're going to get numbers. So,
yeah, I think so. We're missing them for a few days. So that's interesting. And really, if you look at the larger context, right, only 20% of India is still connected, right, on data, right? And I think that is astounding. But I'm going to give you an example of marketing and market creation on the back of this connectivity and how it sort of is opening up, great opportunities. So I'm going to talk about something that, my bank, I work for a bank called Yes Bank, and this is a new generation bank, the only greenfield bank in India in the last 20 years. We're only about 12 years old. So in India, millions of people from villages move to towns, and they work as migrant workers, right? And they only come alone, and their families are back in the villages. And every fortnight, they used to send their wages back to the family because that's the reason they were, living away. And traditionally, this money was routed either through the cash channel, where 20% would be the carriage cost, and used to take days together because somebody physically would take the cash back to the village, or they would line up outside public sector banks, waste a whole wage day, and then remit it from the bank from a banking sort of channel into some banking channel in the village. Now we saw this and we said, can the queues become a clue? At the same time, there was a mobile payment solution that was being launched by the regulator, and we created millions of mom and pop stores into a business correspondent network in urban areas. So now, if I had to send my wage, I just go to a mom and pop store, give those 5,000 rupees, instantly the money would go into a bank account in a village, and the person could withdraw it only at 5 rupees or 10 cents per transaction. Now, over a period of 2 years, we do about 10 million transactions. We have about 35 million customers. So the idea is not to sort of, sell a service, but essentially market creation out of a need and out of an inefficiency that existed. Now, the opportunity for banks and consumer products, because of this connectivity, is immense. Now, these people, these 35 million people, now are, sorted on using mobile devices for transferring money. When these people move into data and smartphones, their ability to accept goods and products and services, is already there. And essentially, the opportunity for a bank like ours to say cross-sell and upsell, loans, services, anything else is immense. The other big boom is the e-commerce boom, because what that's doing is a lot of people, the distribution has been a key challenge in India. A large chunk of the population stays in villages, and apart from L'Oreal shampoos, not much is available. Of course, Satyaki has been instrumental in that. But, how do you get the latest goods and services? And people now are using electronic commerce in a big way. And these people coming from small towns and getting access to electronic cash through prepaid wallets and so on. We've taken 12 years to get 5 million retail customers. The leading payment wallet in India has 120 million customers in 2 years, right? So I think technology is just leapfrogging and giving a sincerely good opportunity for India and for companies in India to reach to 1.2 billion wallets. And I think that is really going to help us leapfrog in the future. So that's my sort of take.
Okay, so is it fair to say then that the two key things you're saying is it's always this talk about the challenge of the rural markets and all that, and people are getting there. The second thing that I take away is the whole notion of Hindustan Levers or the big players and all of that. Established players have been around for years to go, but then you have someone like a Paytm who comes by and they quickly are able to get people from all over the place. And these are like two big things that are happening. Satyaki, I just wanted to, I know that when it comes to L'Oreal going into the rural markets and things like that, you have a point of view on that, and also sort of the impact of digital and mobile, because it sort of builds on what Rajat has been saying. Could we have your take on digital and rural?
So hi everybody, and thank you for calling us here. Extremely happy to be with you. Rajat has spoken mostly about rural and wallets, and I think the banking and the consumer goods sector are going hand in hand. When they're creating wallets, we are being able to sell products. So coming back to the question, I think when you look at a company like L'Oreal, which starts in India now 15 years versus coming up against big competition in India, which is Unilever, and Procter, which remains our competition throughout, who have been around for 50, 60 or 100 years. They have built a distribution system in a country where infrastructure is a challenge, right? So you come in as a new company, multinational, you're competing with them in US or Germany or France or England. How do you do it in India? So first you try to build a distribution channel, but India 2001 census had 4,378 towns. 2011 census says 6,250 urban agglomerations. And after that, there's 600,000 villages. So when you have to reach the number of people that you need and the cost to serve to each store is tremendously high. So here comes in the digital, I think, and we'll talk some common things between Rajat and me. I think what is happening on digital, on the e-commerce side, is that distribution is getting democratized. If our competitors, who have been there for 100 years, could reach X amount of stores, and we may not be able to reach them within a short period of time. When you have e-commerce, then that gets democratized. Everybody in every town or village who has connectivity can buy on e-commerce. It's also true the way we started, that India is a country which is not this or that. It is always about this and that. So the consumer wants the best products. So you'll see in personal care segment where I work in, the brands that are growing are all premium and top-end brands. But these brands are growing in small pack sizes. In India, we call them sachets. Okay, so she wants the best quality, she wants the best brand, but she wants it at an outlay that she can get it for. It's about her pocket size, it's about her wallet in some way. And the aspirations are the same because there are 1 billion phone connections, because there are 266 million, I'm told, smartphones now, which is up from 240. But at the same time, when you have smartphones, you have a lot of 2G connection. But on 2G connection, people are at least browsing. So even if they don't do e-commerce, actually buy or sell, they search. They look for products, they look for information, and then they try to go and buy. But as soon as they have 3G, they start buying online, and that's when we look at a set of consumers who we call urban consumers now. Because the rural areas are getting urbanized, and they're getting urbanized very fast, and the want of the woman in those areas, in the semi-urban areas, are same as urban woman. Now she can get a designer clothing online, and she can buy it, and it can get shipped to her. Okay, so that is getting democratized, and we are seeing some consumer shifts that she wants the best product, she wants it at a price that she wants at, she wants it to reach her, she doesn't want to go from a small town in Bihar or UP to Lucknow or Patna to buy that. Maybe she'll not get them there as well. Maybe she has to go to Calcutta or Delhi, as the case may be. But she today can get it delivered to her, and the payment gateways are moving at the same time. Right? He talked about the biggest payment wallet that has acquired 120 million consumers and is growing fast. You know, in India, if you have to use Uber for a year, we had to use it through payment wallets because credit cards were not getting accepted for whatever reason. So it just grew, and you can see consumer products growing with digital, hand in hand, rural becoming urban, urban coming in, and premiumization happening, which means premium brands are really growing, but at the same time sachetization happening, and the consumer wanting this and that. The last piece in this, my take, is that infrastructure has to grow, and the 240 million smartphone users or 260 million smartphone users have to get into a system where they can watch YouTube, they can watch the sites, they can buy from the sites, etc. And there's some key initiatives about India that I want to talk about here. Is that, Google has started working with the Indian government and the state governments to make 400 stations, railway stations, Wi-Fi enabled. They've opened the first one on 22nd January in Bombay Central. They'll open 100 this year in 2016. And the next ones that are getting opened are not in Mumbai. They're opening in Patna, then Ranchi, then Allahabad, and then Jaipur. Okay, so it's going to the next level towns. It'll go to 100 towns. They have 1 gigabyte backend. So they will be touching 2 billion consumers this year if they can do the 100 stations. And, it's moving. Moment the stations are Wi-Fi enabled.
Sorry, did you say 2 billion?
They will... 20 million.
20 million.
Sorry.
Okay.
So they will touch 20 million consumers this year. And moment the stations become Wi-Fi, the 2G, 3G, 4G doesn't matter.
Right.
And that's happening. The smart cities are coming, but the smart stations will come very soon. End of this year, it will be a different situation.
I do want to add that he's absolutely right in that, because in research, we go in and it's becoming harder and harder to say this is the Bombay, top tier consumer versus this is the person from Bareilly and things like that. Because Priyanka Chopra is that story, right? As she became big, she didn't come from Bombay, she didn't come from Delhi. And this is absolutely true in that consumers are now able to see what's available, because stores in the metros can't really stock everything. So they even in the stores, they can't stock everything. So the rural customers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 town consumers, all of them are able to get access to this sort of thing. And what's happening in tier one is that these people are even trying to access it from abroad. So that sort of like the market broadening has happened.
So the luxury part of our business, are brands like Lancome, Kiehl's, Yves Saint Laurent, these kind of brands, Schumacher. There are a lot of shoppers who are trying to source it from outside India.
Yeah.
But when you look at the division that I run in India, which is consumer products, there L'Oréal Paris is the top-end brand. Now, L'Oréal Paris is a mass brand in US, but it's a prestige brand in India. It's still at the top of the pyramid. And that is where, the distribution democratization through e-commerce, I believe, will help. And I think it will move forward very fast. And finally, because it's a marketing panel, it cannot be this serious. While I love Priyanka Chopra, and she was my brand ambassador for some times, I think the small town phenomenon in India is the biggest because it's Dhoni, who came from Ranchi. I don't think it's Priyanka Chopra, I think it's MS Dhoni.
Dhoni was great as long as he was on CSK, so there is that. So, well, we'll now sort of shift the direction to advertising because we just absolutely have to talk about advertising. One of the things that has come up, and I engage in other discussions on advertising, and I imagine some of you are part of those kinds of discussions with Indians back home, is that a lot of us, there are three of us here, all the women here have had an advertising past. And our generation was tremendously influenced by sort of the Cadbury's Kuch Baat Hai kind of campaigns. And what I've seen is there are 20-year-olds today writing blog posts about that ad, about how brilliant it is and things like that. And one of the reasons it worked the way it did was sort of it really tapped into the zeitgeist of who we were. Because the previous generation was very pessimistic. There was a whole the pre-liberalization burden of having been under the Indira Gandhi regime and those kinds of things. And suddenly there was this optimism and say let's be kids and this is the taste of life, and that was the whole idea behind it. And that campaign sort of like always has been in our minds. But if you see sort of the broader spectrum of ads today, I try to sort of segment them. And there's the slapstick comedy with like OLX type of ads. And they're very popular, they're fun. There are those kinds of ads. There is a lot of the CSRE ads. And even if you see like what's gotten the Cannes Awards, it's Don't Touch the Pickle from Always, it's Share the Load from Ariel, it's those kinds of ads. And then the third category that seems to be there is this sort of like 2 to 5 minute videos. I don't know if you guys have been seeing that. There's the Anouk campaign, and then there's like, they're actual short films. They're sort of like content-based, and the ad is into it, the Lifebuoy film and things like that. So the question to you, Babita, is it fair to say that the ads are slightly more like tactical in that sort of sense rather than being, the emotional Indian thing that sort of like just makes us feel happy and takes us to a happy place?
Thank you, Nima. And thank you, Charanya, and to everyone here for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure. To start with, they are still very, very strong storytelling ads. But I'll tell you how things are changing. There is, in fact, a seismic shift in marketing today in the country. And that's primarily been driven by 3 factors. The first one is retail infrastructure and measurement of media, which is far stronger than what it was before. So today we have malls, we have organized retail, we have e-commerce, which is expanding the market. There are goods which are available, and therefore there is a minimization of wastage, which means that there is a market and marketers are confident about investing in the country. Now, this leads to what we call a crowded marketplace, because every category, Nima, unlike the time you're talking about maybe 10 years earlier, which had 2 or 3 key players and most of the others would have been a little unorganized or whatever.
Well, let's
today,
say 10 years earlier.
Yeah, 10 or 15, yeah.
Yeah.
But today you have key players which are organized, which are local, which are MNCs, and they are all playing a very, very strong game. The second factor, which is very critical, is the explosion of media. I mean, some of us, we grew up at a time when there was one TV channel, And there was one broadcaster, which was Doordarshan. I mean, I remember me and my sister, we would go to the neighbor's house to watch television because we didn't have our set yet. And I remember each and every program now. It started off on Sunday with Mahabharat, and then there was a regional show in the afternoon. There was Rangoli. Yes, thank you so much, Satyaki. Then there was Spider-Man in the evening, The World This Week. There was a feature film, and in between the feature film, there was Krishi Darshan, which was for farmers. I remember everything. I don't know whether all of them were as
yeah.
emotional,
Yeah.
but we do, because there were so few choices. We didn't have the luxury of choice. That was the only channel. Today, there are over 1,000 channels available only for broadcast. We have had numbers of 240, 266, 1 billion, but the fact is there is another screen in the consumer's hands today. And this screen, even if it is a mobile phone and not a smartphone with audio, is actually transferring the consumer directly to Web 2.0, which is you are almost skirting the digital age, which is through laptops, through computers, and your first interface with web is actually through social media on your phones. What does that mean? It means that we are vying as marketers with a lot of free content. It is not just about one ad versus the other, or whether a chocolate brand is more emotional than a financial brand. It is about content which is being uploaded by consumers. It's about regional songs. It's about Bollywood. And all of this are coming together as something that the consumer is seeing and collaborating and participating with. That's the second point. The third one, which is very, very critical, is the change in the consumer's mindset today. Again, we grew up at the time, at least some of us in the panel, not you, because most of you would be millennials, but I'm talking about pre-liberalization, where consumption was, it was a social embarrassment. Like my mother or women would not talk about what they had or the holidays they went to. It was, you shied away from that. The ambassador car, that's the epitome of the times, because, everybody went at the same speed. Even if you wanted to, even if you had the drive, you couldn't drive faster than others. And today, we are a nation of risk takers. Every person out here in this room, we've taken risks. We've torn the social fabric of family. We've torn the social fabric of being, in traditional jobs. We've come out, we've invested in ourselves. We've come for a better future. So India is a risk-taking nation today. We are increasingly being, therefore, connected by culture. And I'm taking a leaf of what you said on migrants. Because when you are a migrant, I'm a migrant. I left Assam, which is my home. I go there maybe once a year. But all of us are connected, A, of course, through technology, and B, through culture. Therefore, the expectation of the consumer today, Nima, to get back to the insights is much more than a very, very emotional storytelling campaign. Okay. It is about what is a brand giving me? How is a brand engaging with me? Is there a platform where I can express myself? Is there an issue which is being addressed, which is maybe raising social awareness or reflecting my life and my journey? So brands are actually doing a lot more than they had to do before, okay, because it is a challenging environment, but in the challenges lies the potential, and it is a very, very exciting time for marketing today.
I absolutely buy that. Thanks for that. At no point was I questioning whether marketers were doing it right, because for people who watch ads here, once you've been in the United States for about 5 to 10 years, I remember when I went back in 2011, I was looking at the ads, and I know what the NRI conversations are, and they used to be like, are we still doing the whole I'm a better wife because I use the right detergent kind of thing? And that's the kind of questions that would come up. And I had no answer to that. And then when I did go and actually do the research, I think one thing we can say with certainty is that the marketers and advertisers in India do really get it. Because it isn't as patronizing as we may see it. But they do read into it the sort of like, I'm a partner with you, and that's sort of the flavor that does.
Just to build on that, there's a lot of empowerment of Indian women which is happening today through advertising. So the role of the women, what is she being portrayed as? Single parenting, choice of life partners, things which were taboo, which you wouldn't speak about, are being used in the guise of brand messaging and communication. So you're doing more than just talking about the benefit of a product, because you are talking to a culture, and cultural change. So
Very
I
true.
so agree with you.
Very cool.
Can I butt in on this?
Actually, no, because we have to go to the last question, but I'll try and come back to you. The question the other thing that actually does come up, and I want to ask your take on it, Jesse, because I've heard you talk about this. So the whole thing of, Incredible India, Shining India, and all of that, we do market the concept a lot. But if you look at the Interbrand list of top 100, this in 2015, there's not a single Indian brand. It's mostly all American brands. You have the Toyota and the Samsung. But we don't have one in the top 100. In 2011, we had ICICI, and that was, I think, more of a scale thing than it was an innovation thing or oh, you make me feel so happy thing or anything like that. What is the truth, do you feel? Like, can there ever be an Indian Google? This is sort of like the cliched question that keeps coming up. We're doing great given the numbers that we have and all that, but what is the real deal?
Right. First of all, I'm an optimist, and I have reason to be an optimist. I'm an example of what can happen when India does things right. So I grew up in the small towns, the rural places that my colleagues here have talked about. Population 1 lakh, I did my entire high schooling there, and then I still managed to go to some of the better colleges in India. In 92, which was the year of liberalization, I chose not to go abroad and stayed back in India. My first trip to the US was in 98. And at the time, India was on a roll, liberalization. So you had this very starry-eyed notion about India. And then you come to the US, and the cab drivers, both in San Francisco and New York, were Indian origin. And immediately they're like, oh my God, you live in India. Are you trying for a green card? I'm like, no. Can you afford to pay for cab fare? I'm like, yeah, my company's paying. But they wouldn't take tips because the India that they had left was still the poor India. It changed around 2001 when we had, some NASDAQ listings and so on. So then when I came back, it was, oh, you're an engineer, you work with a tech company, you can afford to tip me. So, but it's still, right? But it was still in only one segment. And trust me, at 98, we were still explaining to American clients that India had the infrastructure to deliver an IT project. Some of them still only knew about Taj Mahal, snake charmers. And that brings me to the, I know Shashi Tharoor is going to talk about soft power and how we are building it or not. I don't agree that we have a great deal of soft power. It's not just the Interbrand 100, and there are reasons why India wouldn't be there because we were a scarcity economy for so many years that we didn't really have a chance to go global. And there were a lot of regulatory restrictions, etc., till probably around 92, 95. But the soft power thing is a little more different. I don't think we have a plan for it as a country, and that has backfired a little bit. So we don't have an educational institution that people would actually come from the US and say, I want to study in. One or two are making a start, but very few. You would find it really hard to do a reverse conference like this in any institution in India. So we don't have that kind of a pull, and that says something. But I said I'm an optimist, and we've talked about some of the difficulties that exist in India. And primarily, if I go to the discussions of the last 2 days, it's been around education, healthcare, and urbanization. And that's really where I'm seeing a lot of new startups coming up. Because as an optimist, as a marketer, you know that there is a need, which is not being met by the government or anyone else. That's where marketers come in, make it affordable, make it luxurious even at the bottom of the pyramid. And coming back to soft power, I think it's not really the external market, but even in India now, I don't know if you've heard about a brand called Patanjali. Yes, it's one of the largest or fastest growing FMCG brands, and it's built on the Indian ethos. It's built really on Ayurvedic principles, and it has a brand ambassador who is considered something of a Baba. And that, don't laugh, it works, okay? You'd be surprised because I really came in to study the brand as a cynic, and it's like, oh my God, people really love this stuff. But many successful brands today, which are differentiated against the MNCs, are built on premises like Ayurveda, yoga, Vastu, or Indian style design, right? So a Chumbak or a Fab India are really taking Indian soft power to the markets. Some are about to go global. And I think the next wave, if you're going to be a marketer, if you want to sell in India, one of the great entry points would be to pick one of these verticals and then look for an Indian hook and launch your product. And take it abroad, and then our soft power would obviously increase.
Very cool. Thank you. We'll throw it open for Q&A in just a second. I just wanted to go, if you wanted to just last thoughts, I'll just give you like a little, about 30 seconds to go around the panel in terms of anything you want to say and leave us with.
Well, no, I think really interesting perspectives, but I think as a marketer, I mean, I'd go back to what I was saying. I think big opportunity. I think you know, a large demographic dividend and the sort of you know, collation of the consumer into a single fold and the ability for marketers to tap and target them, right? So what mobile is delivering, what, you know, all these consumer products that are coming in, and how distribution is you know, distribution challenges are being sort of negated through the use of technology and connectivity. I think that to me is the biggest sort of thing to look for in the next year or 2 years, and I think it's going to transform a lot of industries, including mine, that is banking.
Makes sense. Babita?
Yeah, the one thing we have to be open as marketers today is learning from others, whether it is Patanjali and what is behind the success, or in fact, I've spoken about this before, reverse mentoring, which is there are a lot of startups today who approach marketing quite differently because they have very small budgets, they need to make use of media, they need to come and create an impact with a very short period of time, unlike, say, a L'Oreal or some of the other brands, where you do have the luxury of either budgets or, say, choice of media. The thing is that there are a lot of things which, because we always talk about learning from bigger organizations or more structured organizations, but it is really these new players with the bold gut and the gumption that are teaching us a lesson on two. And if we have the humility to learn from them, then it's a two-way process and it'll make marketing richer.
Thanks. Satyaki, last thoughts?
So I did not come here to represent L'Oreal and a big advertising budget. I came here to represent India, and I think I'm talking to a lot of Indians who will make it big in their lives. So my request to each one of you, if you take something from this panel, is come back and invest a bit in India, start companies there. Remember that India is 1.2 billion consumers. Remember the demographic dividend is in our favor. Remember that we are growing. Remember infrastructure is coming up. But remember that the consumer is dichotomous. Remember that she wants this and that. And remember that only good things succeed because she has limited amount of money. She cannot afford to make a mistake. Okay, so if she buys a cream which we produce, she cannot buy an inferior cream quality. She cannot buy it and then think, shit, this is not what I wanted. Because she doesn't have the money till next month to go back and buy another one. So make great quality products in whichever line, whichever forum you make it. But remember that she has an outlay problem, and she will take this and that, and she will come back to you. The demographics are in our favor. Try to be innovative in the country.
So with that, we have our first expletive. And Jessie?
Okay. Yeah, I went to Ogilvy and Mather where we were taught to be British and not use expletives.
I went to Pepsi.
Oh, fish. Yeah, so I think there is a shortage of good marketing and branding people, and that is part of why we don't have these massive brands outside of FMCG. So if any of you are considering coming back to India, I would think marketing is a great place to be, particularly in the newer verticals. There is a huge shortage. I do run a marketing community, and forever they're looking for people, particularly those who can market to what I would call a media dark household. So mine is a media dark household. We don't watch TV, we don't read a newspaper. So you can only reach us through digital. So how do you actually build a brand when that's the case? And that's true for many of the startups in India. So I think it's a very challenging time. It's great fun. I've loved being in marketing for the last 20 odd years, and strongly encourage people not to listen to people who say sales is the way to go and, you know, operations is the way to go, and look at marketing as a career.
Very cool. Thank you very much. So we'll start taking questions. I'll take 2 or 3 at a time, and then yes.
Hi, I'm Amol, and I'm into software products. Not really into marketing, but curious about marketing. And I have a question for Babita here. Hi, since you have been into advertising, I would like to know that over time, is it so that using a celebrity to promote your product, celebrity especially I mean by Bollywood and cricketers, is it so that the product sells better or you make more money? So is celebrity advertising really effective, especially in India, given that we worship celebrities a lot in India? So is that really effective? Does it really make a difference? Whether
I get your question. So is celebrity endorsement effective? That's your question, right? We'll just take two more and then we'll throw it to the panel. Yes, name and question, please.
Hi, my name is Mansi. So my question is open to the panel. I want to know about the evolution of advertising in India in terms of moral policing or where we stand. For example, one of the major campaigns of advertising that we've seen is Fair and Lovely, where we are effectively promoting racism and girls get married if they become fair. And in 5 days, they change 2 shades and they get married in a week. So, I know there's no regulation, but what kind of moral consciousness have we developed in the recent past, or do we see in the near future, which makes marketing a more responsible business, in terms of societal framework development? Understood? And
my question was directed towards getting some examples of guerrilla marketing techniques which you have seen from new age startups. They are targeting a very small market, using a word, a phrase like media dark households. So what are some of the successful examples in that space?
Got it. So if we could start off with the celebrity endorsement.
Yeah, okay. Amol, right? You've asked $1 million question, and if there was a right answer, everybody would have been very happy. To start with, yes, we are a nation that loves drama, loves Bollywood, loves cricket, and therefore, to break clutter and to make a point, historically or traditionally, there has been use of celebrities for brands that can afford celebrities. So yes, if they didn't work, then they wouldn't have been endorsers, because the fact is there is a lot of money involved when you endorse, when you use a celebrity, whether he's, say, a Bollywood celeb or anybody who's a poster boy or a poster girl. Having said that, there is a change today, because digital and social media are throwing up a lot of celebrities, like stand-up comedians, for instance, local bands. I come from the Northeast, where there's a brand of Naga sisters, and they sing Christmas carols, they sing songs, Western music, and they are in their own right becoming a brand to reckon with. YouTube has their own set of celebrities today. In fact, some of the clients I work with and some of the brands I work on, they are looking at YouTube celebrities, whether it's about, again, pairs like duos who are into comedians, or generally who host shows, for instance. So it is shifting, but the fact is that it is such a crowded market out there that to make yourself heard, any face which is a known face really helps. So for instance, if you use even a YouTube celeb, I'm not even talking about Bollywood celebrities, you have a fan club, you already have a lot of people who love that person, and therefore there's an easier acceptance of the message that you're sharing. But it is moving, because today it is more about reality, it is more about, well, not reality, but more of a reflection of real life. Stars have become very accessible now. They have their own Twitter accounts, they have their own social media handles, so it's not like brands have exclusively brought you a star today. It is changing, but yes, it'll take time before we completely move out of celebs. Do you want me to take the second question? Or?
Just one second. I also want to add to that it does help to break through clutter. People
Yes, it
recognize
does.
immediately.
Yeah.
Because it used to really irritate me, because it was like, here's your Hrithik, here's your Salman. It's like, then which camera was it, or which Banyan was it? I have no idea. And honestly, consumers don't either, but then they believe you're a credible enough brand that you could get them.
Yeah.
So in that sense. And I know that Satyaki also, you talked about how it's moving more to Y and away from the JLOs of the world, which is like a good thing. Yeah, I think Babita will have to take the Fair and Lovely question as well.
Yeah.
Can I take the fair and lovely question, if you don't mind?
Not at all.
I was on the CII Marketing Council, and this actually came up for discussion. And I didn't know, for example, that you cannot take action, legal action against an ad. In India, it's a self-governing body called ASCI. So every quarter, they produce a list of ads that someone has complained about, usually their own competitors.
Not every quarter. I'm jumping in because
Yeah.
I'm part of the ASCI board in India. ASCI is a self-regulatory body of advertising in India. I sit on the council. We have meetings every 2 weeks. Today, our complaint lines, there's nothing to do with L'Oreal, okay? It's an independent body. Our complaint lines are online. You can download ASCII and you can put a complaint there and it will be up in 2 weeks in front of the council. The council has corporate members. The council has professors from IIT. The council has consumer activists. The council has journalists. It's a mixed council. Okay, advertisings like the one that you talked about, which I can't talk about because it's competition, do not exist anymore. Okay, even if it's Unilever, you should Google the latest Fair and Lovely ads. They are my worldwide competition. They do not say what you just explain, because those advertisings in India today will go down within 2 weeks by the self-governing body.
It's a
And
self-governing body,
they
but
ha-
there is no moral
people-
framework.
But people abide by it. I am part of the corporate world also. My ads also get challenged for various reasons. It may not be as serious as you talked about, but various reasons. But if the governing body takes a stance against it and the complaint is upheld, which is upheld within 5 days of the the governing body meeting, then you have to take it down. From posters, from POS, from TV.
I do want to add one thing. In India, it's impossible almost to find a cream that is not whitening now. Including deodorants, everything now has a property saying whitening cream. Because I searched for my daughter, it's really hard to find a normal variant of anything that's not fairness. And I do want to say that while you do take off something that has been defined as misleading, if I can show that my product actually does make you fair, that's not misleading, that's correct. So there's no moral stance saying that I'm not allowed to say my product will make you fairer.
I do want to, because I worked on Fair and Lovely, and since I don't work with them now, I can talk about it. Having spoken to consumers, it's a deeply, deeply misunderstood thing by people who don't care. In the sense, why is this a racism thing? And that's the lens through which it's viewed. But if you actually went into Tamil Nadu, for instance, which is sort of like one of the biggest markets for Unilever, the reason why people use Fair and Lovely, they'll tell you things like how it's helped them in life. They got better husbands. They got their better lives. They got a better job. It's sort of like if you try to look into what sells Victoria's Secret, why does someone buy Victoria's Secret? She's buying hope. That's the underlying factor there. She's not really buying sexy lingerie alone. And it's sort of like that. And that is an alternative. You don't have to agree with it, but that is a lens. So it's sort of like there is the need, and that need is being delivered on. But the broader spectrum of advertising, if you study today, the CSR wave, I think, is like incredibly strong.
Yeah, I'll just build on what you said, because this is a marketing forum, and maybe some of you, if not all, will go on to be marketers and will review advertising and create it, if not work in advertising. Look, at the end of the day, it is storytelling. And storytelling historically has been exaggeration. Otherwise, it's not a story. It doesn't tickle our imagination. So the script always is an ordinary day, an ordinary person. Something happens, and there's an extraordinary life after that. And that's truly the script of our lives. Artists have used it in paintings. Theater artists have used it in plays. Hollywood uses it for the best films that we've seen. Yes, it should not be offensive, but at the same time, it should be something that compels you to sit up and say, you know what, I want that brand, or I want that product. And that's really the secret of marketing.
And also, to your point, I think the social media backlash that comes almost immediately from consumers, in addition to ASCII, like the vaginal whitening thing, it got taken down so fast.
Immediately.
It was so that's happening as well. I think we have the last question on the guerrilla marketing. Is there anyone here who'd wanted?
I take that.
Please do.
Like 5 years back, banking was this highly regulated, industry, and now everyone wants to do banking. There are telecom companies, there are wallets, and all of that. And I'll give you an example. So I wanted to buy a suitcase, and we were just chatting about that. This was a American Tourister suitcase, 14,500 rupees, on a 50% discount on an e-commerce site with a 50% cashback, right? So I actually land up buying a suitcase for like 1/4 the amount, right? And what it does is this website, which is a e-com cum wallet company, makes me buy off them and makes me pay through them, and also gets me a cashback on them, right? Now, in my view, I don't think they made money on it. They lost money, but because they are so well funded, they can afford it for a long time, and their primary goal is to acquire consumers. But essentially, what they're doing through some of these sort of techniques is buying consumers and buying a base, right? Now, one can argue, and because we come from a listed organization which has to, deliver profits, a bank would never do that. But I think what is changing is a lot of these new age e-com companies are actually funding it, funding the consumer. There's no better time to be an Indian consumer, because you really have products and services which are top class, world class services, coming at price points which are unthinkable, and it's really getting more and more competitive. So I think this is, it's a classic example of how these new age companies are actually buying their way through the consumer, and have built, customer bases which are, tenfold of that of traditional organizations such as ours. And I don't know how time will go. Our belief is that some of this is not sustainable, but the truth is that they're sitting on an asset of consumer base, which is a lot larger. So that's the whole deal. But the other thing about the Indian consumer is they're very value conscious, and I think when this value goes away, they will then go back to the next most valuable thing, right? So one can argue, what is the right way of doing it, but a lot of it is happening now, and it's a damn good time to be a consumer in India.
Yeah. We would love to take more questions, but then we have to wrap this up right now. We are all available. I think I speak for us, all of us, when I say we're marketers. We love to talk about what we do all the time. So Jesse, Satyaki, Babita, Rajat, thank you so much. Thanks, Charanya, as well.
you.
And thanks all of you for being here and being such
Thank
an
you so
engaged
much.
audience.
Thank
and
you.
feel free to come over and talk to us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.